you. At Mosport, Ontario, just a day before the Labatt Can-Am, the season opener for the Can-Am Series, tensions are riding pretty high. Never before have so many Canadians been entered in this race, and there's a good chance a Canadian driver just might win. You know, there's nothing like being right here at the track. The smell of exhaust, the roar of the engines, the wide open spaces. It's great.
Getting here has not been that easy. The road to Mosport is a tough one, full of hazards. Design of car, selection of driver, testing of engine. All elements must come together in time for this first race. What an incredible selection we have this year with drivers of all ages and cars of all varieties. We've lined up the top contenders for you to have a look at before race day. Canada's Jacques Villeneuve is the favorite heading the Labatt's Can-Am lineup. He placed fourth overall in his first ever Can-Am race last year. This young Quebecer drives hard and fast, going all out, but sometimes at some sacrifice to his equipment. He'll be a leader in the race tomorrow, but to win, he will have to be easier on his car. As Gilles' younger brother, he feels the pressure to succeed.
If it's going to look not too good, not dominating the series with the car that won the series last year, it's some pressure, and somehow we're going to have to dominate the series, win every race, and qualify good and doing everything perfect and somehow. So it's a big task.
Villeneuve will be driving the same 5-liter V8 Frisbee in which Al Unser Jr. raced to victory in last year's Can-Am Series, breaking Mosport's qualifying and race record speeds. In fact, Unser had 2 cars last year, almost identical. He won Mosport's June race with one and a September race with another. The well-financed Canadian Tire team will field both for Jacques. Last February, in California's sunshine, we caught Villeneuve's Canadian Tire back team testing a very powerful car over 550 horsepower. In his first test ride there at Riverside, Villeneuve broke the track speed record. In spite of this, he feels it's a disadvantage not to be able to race cars in winter.
Up here in North America, we only race 5-6 months a year. That's all we can get as far as the weather is concerned. But myself, I keep my hand busy all the time because I race snowmobile in winter. So I keep myself busy with speed, with handling powerful things. So when summertime comes, I'm still, rolling with high-speed stuff. So, but I don't really need a lot of preparation. I really do get quick at doing things. I get quick going fast or going around a car. I learn a track really fast, so I don't really need a lot of preparation. Well, I race snowmobiles. I raced last winter. I'm going to be racing against next winter. 14 years, I think, right now for snowmobile for next winter. Then cars, I've been racing cars for 7 or 8 years this coming summer.
Jacques has his eye on Formula One for the future. Like many a racer before him, Can-Am may be the stepping stone.
In my case, it is, and somehow, because it's more experience for me to drive a big car with lots of power, somehow equally to Formula One. In my case, there's only one position I like to finish, it's win. It doesn't mean crashing or wins, but I'd like to win. I might settle for second place if the car doesn't want to go that any further, but winning is everything right now.
In the heart of England, where they drive on the wrong side of the road, near Manchester, we found another Can-Am team in frantic preparation last month. Owner-manager Bob Fernley and driver Jim Crawford were getting ready to bring a 3.3-liter Cosworth Ford all the way over to Canada for veteran driver Jim's second Can-Am season. Crawford, in his mid-30s, is Britain's 1982 Formula One champion, who's excited about his new car and his chances.
The race at Mosport will be the first race for this car. It's based loosely on last year's Ensign, but we've gone through an awful lot of time and trouble to build what we think is that's ideally suited car for Can-Am. I'm looking forward to getting back to Canada, America. We did the 5 races last year just to look and see sort of car would need to try and win it. I enjoyed it an awful lot. After racing in Europe for the last 10 years, I've done everything from Formula 1, Formula 3, Formula 2, and it's a new challenge. Over here it's getting very difficult to find the big budgets to race in Europe, whereas in America there's still the amateur side racing with the professional side, and it tends to be a great leveler. So it's a nice way to go for me. I can start again and maybe try and win that championship and then go on and stay out there in maybe Indianapolis, who knows. It's something I'm looking forward to.
This RK 180B machine has a less powerful engine at 3.3 liters than the Frisbees and Porsches, but has been carefully designed to be very lightweight as compensation. This enlarged Formula One Ford V8 engine will not have to carry as much weight in gas as the others, and the body is not made of the traditional fiberglass. The sponsor is RK Carbon Fibers Industries, so this body will be made entirely of strong but lightweight carbon fiber, with honeycomb steel added in some areas. Crawford's new car aims for superior road holding with its ground effects design. When we filmed these scenes in England, the crew of 2 mechanics were still awaiting this body to fit over the chassis. There was worry that there would be little time for testing before the first Labatt Can-Am race. But everyone had confidence that driver Jim would do well, since he finished in the top 5 of the 5 Can-Am races he entered last year, paid all his expenses, and still came home with $30,000. Owner Bob Fernley feels he can do even better this year.
Okay. The body's a new aerodynamic design for Can-Am, and it's designed by Paul Brown, who has spent a lot of experience with March and Maras over the years. This design is specifically worked on around a Formula 1 car. We're hoping by using the large rear wings, the additional of the large front wing, we should get extra downforce. This is a problem that we were suffering terribly last year, especially at Mosport, which I think was our worst race. All these coming together, I think we will be extremely competitive.
The last remains of an old estate, which is now England's Oulton Park racetrack. Here we filmed Crawford driving the RK 180B for the very first time, even though its wings were not yet ready. Jim is an expert tester, as manager Fernley well knows.
One of our main advantages having Jim Crawford as our driver. His experience over the years enables us to be able to set the car up exactly right to his instructions. Years and years of hard work have given him this ability, something which a lot of younger drivers, I'm sure, will be suffering from and wish they had the skills and experience that he has. This experience, of course, does not only just entail the setting up of the car for testing and for the development of the car, but most important when we're actually racing, because it enables us to get the car correct in the shortest time possible, which means that we can reduce the engine mileage and therefore the cost of our racing, which obviously is very, very important.
No problems in the first run. It's a little leak in the oil cooler, but we can soon fix that. But all the systems work, the brakes, the clutch, the gearbox. So that's a major milestone pass for us. So now it's just sorting the car out to make it quick. We know it works. We'll go to Mosport and sort it out, make it handle well.
Getting to Mosport was the problem of manager Fernley, who had to arrange to air express the entire car, a spare engine, and parts.
Thanks so much. Hope you win the championship.
We'll bring it back for you this year. Okay, we've had our problems this year, and it's been a long road to Mosport, but I think we'll make it okay.
The British entry did make it to Toronto okay, and in time to enter qualifying runs against the biggest season-opening field ever, 25 cars. Meanwhile, Canadian driver-owner Horst Kroll, who is also his own mechanic, was preparing his car at his own Scarborough Auto Service. For the first time in his 20 summers of racing, Kroll has a major sponsor, Chipwich. He thinks this will change his driving style.
The competitiveness this year will definitely change. I will have a competitive car to start off with. I have the money to pay the bills with, and I have a different attitude. I don't have to, like I used to in the past, depend on the prize money to pay the bills for. This year, this is, at least for the first part of the series, it's all gravy. and we can mentally go faster than I have in the past.
The car he'll go faster in is a brand new machine in the Frisbee design called a Chipwich Charger with a 5-liter Chevy engine. Kroll started as a Canadian hill climbing champion, was 1968 Canadian champion racing driver, and a 3-time Formula V winner. Kroll estimates he has entered 45 Can-Am races. By the end of this series, he should be the record holder for the most Can-Am drives. Kroll is hungry to finally win one, but admits it's a disadvantage being a seasonal driver, a part-time pro.
It helps, it really does help being a driver all year round. We do have a disadvantage in Canada. We start off in June and we finish in October, and the time we get into racing, this is all we've got. And I have noticed that myself, at the end of the season, I'm always better than at the beginning of the season. So a lot of racing will definitely help you.
For years, Horst was the only regular Canadian on the circuit, his one-man team struggling against the Americans with their mega-buck budgets.
Big teams usually have between 15 and 20 people working what I'm doing by myself with the help of others that are just amateurs in the sport, and we're trying to compete against the professionals. This really is something that folks out there don't know when I come up and do my racing on the weekend.
But Kroll has the advantage of knowing his engine inside out. Many drivers have a problem describing a car's track behavior to their mechanics. At Kroll Racing, Horst is usually talking to himself. As team manager, he is also painfully aware of the costs.
A set of tires is approximately $800, and you need 2 for the weekend to be competitive. An engine these days is just under $20,000 for a Chevy. Gears and normal wear and tear is probably estimated at $10,000 a season. Big teams usually need probably around $1.5 million right now to run a competitive team.
Back in England just a few days ago at the world-famous circuit Silverstone, a second British Can-Am team was preparing their entry. Home of this year's British Grand Prix, this former World War II airbase has 3 miles of tarmac and is the ideal testing ground for new machines. The John Fitzpatrick racing team was hastily readying a Porsche 956 Turbo. This is the same model of car that won the 24-hour race of Le Mans. Many people figure this 700 horsepower engine will beat the traditional 5-liter Chevys. Fitzpatrick's crew ordered a factory engine with horsepower 20% over what they use for endurance races. But they had doubts about being ready on time.
Yeah, we would have liked to have done quite a bit more pre-race testing for Mosport, but during the actual situation as it is, we've just had no time at all, and in fact we're really up against it to get the car there at all. Due to releases from the factory in Germany and getting of the actual Can-Am engine, which is an engine with higher compression ratio and larger turbos than we use in Group C. So all in all, you know, if we're out and rolling on Wednesday at Mosport, we'll be pretty happy.
Fitzpatrick would be happy too. The Labatt Can-Am would be the first for this 2-time European GT champion, who is a full-time professional driver. The driver of this car is 39-year-old Bertil Roos, the Swedish racing ace who came third in last June's Labatt Can-Am. Last week at Mosport, our cameras caught him about to test drive his radical new catamaran car for the first time ever.
Last year, you know, I drew this, I competed in a 2-liter class of Can-Am in a 2-liter car. And comparing with the 5-liter car I'm going to drive this here, the last year car was much lighter, easier to drive car. I could throw it around much more and drive it more sideways and so on, which I don't think I can do this year. This new 5-liter car is much stiffer sprung, have ground effect, and have to be driven more smooth. And of course, it have a lot of more power, but that's not really the problem. You can put whatever power you want in my hands. The problem is to get the car to go around corners.
This radical design is intended to create unbelievable cornering.
Yes. A little earlier, all cars, or race cars, they had wings on the cars. Wings to put pressure on the cars to force them more down to the road so that they could corner faster. And this really increased the cornering speed on cars dramatically those days. But the negative thing with it was that these wings slowed them down on the straightaways. And then suddenly this ground effect technology came up, and that is a different way of creating downforce on the car. It is a special shaped underside of the car, and that gives suction and really sucks the car down. And by using that, they don't need to have so much wings, and the cars can go faster on the straightaway and still have this enormous ground effect. And some cars can have so much ground effect, so it can actually be possible to drive up on a vertical wall and even maybe drive upside down on the ceiling if it was possible. That's how effective this ground effect can be. With this car I'm going to drive is that instead of having wings on the car like you see most race cars have, Herb Adams, the designer, made a wing out of the whole car by moving the driver all the way out on the left side and the motor all the way out on the right side. And therefore, the center section of the car can be made just like a wing, and the whole car works like a wing and supposed to give lots of downforce.
But Bertel has decided not to drive the catamaran. He found it too hard to control in the corners sitting so far to the left of the vehicle, and the ground effects was not to his taste. Pro driver Milt Minter of Fresno, California has been called in at the last minute to replace him before qualifying.
Oh, well, it's different. It sure is different, but I think it'll work out. It'll be all right.
You don't see yourself having any problems adjusting to being on the left-hand side so far over with the engine on the right?
Yeah, I do see a problem, but I think I'll get used to it. Well, the problem is sitting all the way over to the left side, and the car is very wide, clear to the maximum, so it's very hard to judge. And after you do it for a while, you get used to it. It's just like driving a car that you sit on the right side, you know. I'll get used to it.
When we filmed John Fitzpatrick's racing team in England, it was obvious they were having some trouble making the deadline for this Can-Am race, but now it's official. They didn't make it in time for qualifying. But two prototype marches are here at Mosport, a turbo Horst march to be driven by Al Hobart, and a 6-liter Chevy march by Hurley Haywood.
We're not going to go for the pole. These cars are not as quick as a present-day Can-Am car, but I think they'll be just fine for the race. I think it would be to our advantage if it rained. These cars, we have windshield wipers and windshields. We don't get all wet, and it's easier to drive these cars in the rain than it is a Can-Am car. So it wouldn't upset me at all if it rained like cats and dogs on Sunday.
Richard Spenard of Laval, Quebec is another Canadian expected to do very well. He's a racing instructor driving here for Phil Conte of California in a Frisbee.
Better with the wing like this.
It feels a little better?
Well, it must be. Going faster, you know. Yeah. It is better.
But all the balance is good in the high speed?
Oh, yeah.
Is it staying off the ground in the low speed stuff? It's not banging the tub?
It's really tricky here, like you can see.
Oh, well, yeah, we see that.
It's a very impressive car to drive, and it's very, very quick.
That's right. The talk around here is that you've got a pretty hot vehicle. What do you feel about your chances?
Well, I feel pretty good. I mean, I know Jacques Villeneuve, it's my biggest competitor, and he has quite an advantage on me. He practiced. He had 2 days of testing so far. I didn't. It was my first time out today. Actually, I'm quite happy with what I did this morning. First time out, I think we did some good times. Hopefully, we'll be able to improve our time and be able to compete against Jacques, you know.
Is Villeneuve the man to beat?
Oh, definitely is the man to beat. Yeah, he has the right equipment. He has the talent. Jacques is quick. I race against Jacques often. We always had good race. Hopefully, we'll be able to have another one today.
Dr. Charles Monk of Sarnia, Ontario, is another Canadian entry. And driver Mike Freeberg of Toronto has a 4-liter V6 Viper ready to go.
I think that Villeneuve and Spenard and Crawford are definitely the favorites for this race. But of course, you know, it's a long race, and with this car that I'm running, we're going to have a little bit of an advantage in fuel consumption and straight line speed over those cars, and that can work out to our advantage. And I think we may not be positioned right now as one of the favorites, but I think come Sunday afternoon, that's going to change.
Qualifying Friday established Jacques Villeneuve firmly in the pole position for this Sunday's race with a time of 1 minute 10.7 seconds. Britain's Crawford and Canada's Spenard were close behind him.
About 7 minutes left, so we're going to have to hurry up here.
All right. Yeah, what was my time?
17.5 on lap 2.
Your mind set on qualifying, now you look ahead to the race.
Yeah, it's a completely different thing. Now we're trying to outthink them. That was just a flat-out blind to see how fast the car would go. Obviously, we've got a bit of work to do. 2 seconds or so we've got to find. I think we can do that. We don't have any tyres yet. They're still stuck at the airport, so maybe that's the answer. I don't know. But now we start thinking towards the race, and it's 60 laps. You know, that's a long way. So we've got to think keeping the car together, keeping it going quickly, and how best to use the fuel that we can get away with. And maybe we can outthink them. You never know.
I think Sunday race is going to be a long race. It's 60 laps. Richard and Jim Crawford and Albert, all these guys are pretty well on finishing rate. So I never drove a 5-liter car before for 60 laps, so it's going to be something different for me. I'm going to start from the pole, so I think I'm going to try to pace out a certain race time and try to hold there, make a caution, and finish the race.
As yesterday's qualifying came to an end, Jacques Villeneuve was presented with a special award of $5,000 for winning the pole position. If you can't be here, you can watch race highlights on Sports Weekend later this month. We'll have our cameras in the pits and in some of the cars. This promises to be a no-holds-barred 60-lap thriller, and this could very well be the year of the Canadians. Mark Lee, CBC Sports, Mosport, Ontario.